Every time the pressure rises, we play better. Let's go take down the champ.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
Hello and welcome back to Seattle, Washington for this second round here on Sunday of the Northwest Challenge. I'm Charlie Eisenhood alongside Keith Rayner, and we are very excited to bring you this excellent high-profile matchup between Oregon and the Ohio State University. This essentially the de facto finals of the tournament, not a typical bracket play tournament, but both of these teams come into this game undefeated. Whoever comes out of this game as the victor will likely be seen as the winner of this tournament, and both of these teams have really separated themselves this season as two of the very best teams in this country. Keith, let's talk about this matchup. I want to start by talking about some of the players to watch here and the matchups that we're going to be watching for throughout the course of this game. We saw yesterday Ohio State running so well through Paige Soper and Cassie Swafford, and who on Oregon is going to be able to take those matchups and give those players who were so impressive yesterday against Washington trouble in this game?
It'll be interesting to see how Coach Lou Burris of Oregon decides to match those players up. He has a number of weapons to try and use to stop them, and I think he'll kind of rotate through them and find out who he thinks will have the most success. Bethany Kaler, a standout defender, and it wouldn't be surprising to see him assign her to probably Paige Soper and look to try and run Soper after a turn. But Haley Walrus, the freshman, is also taking on some of the big matchups. Could see Ashley Young, who was out for that Friday night showcase game that we had of Oregon with food poisoning. She's back and playing with the team, and she also could be someone we see take on a tough matchup.
These teams have not played since pool play of the college championships in 2012. So they don't know each other so well, as often is the case. The East and West Coast teams not getting that many games against each other before nationals. And so these teams with an opportunity to really find out what the other one is going to be doing before nationals. And both of these teams, I think, expected to be semifinalists this year, or at least favorites to be semifinalists and perhaps finalists at this year's college championships. And we've seen these teams play, Keith. The styles that they play in, how do you expect those to play out over the course of this game? Does either team have an advantage as one, just trying to enforce their style of play onto the other?
Well, we've talked so much about how can you beat this Oregon team, and one of the things they're going to do is they're going to give you the disc. You're going to get the chance to score. But most teams lack the patience or the fortitude or the skill to work back through what is an aggressive and intelligent Oregon defense. The team that we saw from Ohio State play against Washington looked like they had the patience and the skill to attack after the turn. And if they're able to do that, they could be the team that takes down Oregon, who has just a single loss on the season.
Absolutely the stingiest defensive line offense we saw all weekend yesterday from Ohio State against Washington in the game that they won 15-2. And a lot of that big win came because when they got the disc, they did not give it back. And so that could spell trouble for Oregon. But, of course, Oregon, with such a strong defense, great energy, quick attack, as we see team taking the line here. It's Ohio State in black getting set to pull, Oregon in yellow. And we're set for a great contest here, Keith. This is the finals of the Northwest Challenge. Whether you want to call them the finals or not is up to you. It is just another game, but it's the finals in the mind of Coach Lou Burris, we know that much.
Yeah, the team that wins this will be undefeated and the de facto champion of this tournament as Kaler opens up with a look to Darch upfield.
Sophie Darch One of the top players in the country dishes it back to Kaler, and Darch will get it back on the sideline. Right back to Kaler. Man defense here from Ohio State to start things off. Oregon moving up the field, back in the hands of Kaler. Dishes to Darch. Sun out here in Seattle. Some sporadic rain has left for now, and Darch looking to the end zone, firing a flick across the field and into the end zone, so it's a smooth start here for the #1 team in the country, Oregon, and they take a 1-0 lead here with an offensive hold.
Ohio State's Jenna Galetta drawing the Darch matchup on that point. Caitlin Harley, one of the captains of this Ohio State team, assigned to Bethany Kaler, but Kaler and Darch able to work through that fairly easily, and then Darch opens up the field with that cross-field throw. And as is typical with this with this Oregon matchup, expect to see these two teams really feeling each other out, especially, as you noted, having not played against each other in a couple seasons. I expect these first couple points, we'll see some smooth offense as teams are trying to figure out what matchups they like, where to attack, and how to attack.
Oregon with a nice, easy hold to start things off. We'll see how Ohio State responds throughout the course of this game defensively. Did see them have some success yesterday with a poachier look against Washington. And Ohio State sideline getting fired up as the OSU offense gets set for their first point here in this game, and it's going to be Oregon's Jesse Schaffner with the pull, and big backhand roller lands at midfield and rolls another 15 yards. And it will be Cassie Swafford, the team's Callahan nominee, picking up to start the offense. She gets it to Paige Soper.
We talked about freshman phenom Haley Walrus being used as a defensive stopper, and she'll take on Soper.
Swafford attacking the end zone right away with a flick out into the space, and she finds Elizabeth Gates for the quick score. So all tied up here at ones. Both offenses looking good to start the contest.
Ohio State, possibly the more athletic team in this matchup, and Liz Gates part of that. She's one of the speedsters for this Ohio State team, usually on the defensive line, taking on some of their tough matchups, but here coming over to offense and opening up the field a little bit, Swafford hits her.
And so much confidence from the Oregon coaching staff in young Haley Walrus, freshman on this Oregon squad, and she takes maybe the best player on this Ohio State team. Paige Soper, the Callahan nominee last year, a finalist, and has played outstanding ultimate so far this weekend.
Walrus very impressive in her own right. Certainly hard to tell she's a freshman from the way that she comports herself on the field. She will be a big part of this Oregon team for the next couple of years and already has made herself a staple.
It's going to be Soper with the pull for Ohio State. Oregon offense gets set. It's centered to Darch. Darch ahead to Kaler. Kaler moving it up the sideline to Alex Odie. Galetta on the mark on Odie. Darch getting it now. Good position. Stephanie Miller on the mark. And Darch's throw over the head of the dump. So now Ohio State with the first chance. That's the first turnover of this game. Paige Soper picking up for OSU. Soper looking to her dump. Gets it off. Now comes up the sideline. Miller holding. Darch on the mark. And Miller swings it over to Swafford, who goes ahead to Soper and a little bit too far out in front. Soper lays out, can't get a hold of it. Darch picks up for Oregon, and as usual, Oregon looking to move quickly. And a drop from Oregon gives it back to Ohio State. And so a second chance here for the OSU team to get the first break of this game. Soper picks up, immediately steps around and puts up a big backhand, looking down into the end zone, and it's a perfect shot to Stephanie Miller on the left-hand side of that right end zone. And OSU takes their first lead of the game with the break. It's 2-1.
What a showing of the power that Paige Soper has. Able to really fire that disc and give it to a spot where her receiver was the only person who had a shot at it. We saw these Ohio State handlers dominate in their matchup against Washington. Their ability to move the disc, to take the break side and the big shot, an important part of their completely dominant performance in that game. And we'll need to see Oregon find a way to challenge that handler group, really 4 players, Stephanie Miller, Caitlin Harley, and then, of course, Swafford and Soper.
We've talked about this Ohio State team and how good they've been this year. They have not lost since January, when they lost to Central Florida and then got revenge with a win against UCF at Queen City Tune-Up in February, and have not looked back since, have not lost since then, and have really rolled through this tournament and have the early lead here against Oregon in this very high-profile matchup. Oregon ranked number 1 on the Ulti World Power Rankings. Ohio State number 3.
Told this is the first time Ohio State has flown to a tournament, so this is a big moment in the growth of their program. Then they get to challenge the number 1 team in the country. There's a lot on the line here, even if there's nothing.
Kaler with a cross-field throw to Odie. Now to the sideline, back in the hands of Darch. Darch moves it to Lily Weaver. Weaver to the sideline for Schaffner. Big Cassie Swafford mark. Not enough to stop Schaffner from the inside flick. Now going down the field, looking into the end zone, and a nice grab on the box out from Olivia Bartruff, who continues to impress and get down the field and find space in that end zone, and Oregon ties the game at 2s.
Bartruff has made a name for herself with her speed and quickness, but they're showing she's got more than just wheels, making a smart fundamental play to box out the defender, gain position, and attack the disc. But she's been racking up the goals for Oregon this season, and it's become an important cog offensively for them.
So Oregon getting into that right-hand end zone, which has proven to be the more difficult end zone to score in throughout most of this weekend. Not much wind to speak of at the moment, but a slight breeze from right to left across your screen.
And both these teams, of course, have some star players. We have 2 Callahan nominees. We have a Callahan finalist from last season. Bethany Kaler, also one of the country's top players, but neither team relies on those players to do everything for them. They're deep.
Oregon pull, lands near the goal line, centered to Soper, dishes it. Seeing more of a zone look here from Oregon, trying to put some pressure on those lanes, and always active Oregon defense. Looking to slow down this OSU offense, and it's going to be a drop for Ohio State on the dump pass. Jenna Galetta unable to handle it, and Oregon immediately getting it into the end zone. It's a score for Foley Galvin, and Oregon gets their break back and retakes the lead 3-2.
Coach Lou Burris has got to be happy with that. That's what you want if you're Oregon, is to create a chaotic look upfield for Ohio State, force them to think more than play. And we see perhaps that chaos getting into Galetta's head and creating an easy drop. Oregon uses this chaos as one of their best weapons. They practice in it and know how to use it to their advantage instead of be hampered by it, which few teams do. Very communicative. Their players are taught to have great field sense, and it allows them to have a lot of success when they come down in these junky looks.
If you're just joining us, welcome. You're watching Ulti World's coverage, 2014 Northwest Challenge, presented by 5 Ultimate. Oregon in yellow here leading Ohio State 3-2. You see Coach Lou Burris out on the line with his team.
Both of these teams very well coached, and it shows in their play and how strong they are mentally. Coach Lou Burris, well known for what he's done with this Oregon program, Coach Deanna Ball for Ohio State. Both teams with also sizable coaching staffs.
Pull lands at about 3/4 of the way up the field. Center to Soper for Ohio State. Physical mark from Toki for Oregon. Ohio State moving ahead in the hands of Miller. Soper trying to find some room. And dumped to Swafford.
Swafford marked by Odie. So far not seeing the same matchups there as we see a bid from Fontenot.
Andrea Fontenot, such a good athlete for this Oregon team. Disc moves to the sideline for Ohio State. Soper to Swafford in the center. Swafford all the way across. Lauren Frankie now dishing back to Swafford. Swafford ahead. Now about 5 yards outside the end zone. Miller holding. To Swafford. Patience here from Ohio State. Swafford swings it across to Caitlin Harley. Harley looking into the end zone, but it bounces off the hands of Stephanie Miller. And so a nice offensive point goes wrong at the last moment, and it'll be Haley Walrus checking it in for Oregon on the cone.
What you like here, if you're Ohio State, is that you're not giving up a fast break opportunity. Ohio State will struggle perhaps against Oregon, who excels in that area, but Toki giving up a high stall floater.
Frankie coming down with it right into the goal line and dishing it into the end zone for Soper. And you can see the difference in Oregon's attack after the turn when they have to wait and bring it in on the cone versus immediately able to jump into that transition and attack quickly, and they give it right back to Ohio State. Ohio State punches it in and ties it at 3s.
You can see the discipline and the structure that Ohio State's offense runs with. Rarely do they take really difficult looks up the field. They've got a strong look progression that they get through fairly quickly, and they rarely clog the lanes. All signs of good coaching on this Ohio State team, but also that they're a very disciplined, smart team.
Ohio State with a much smaller roster here than Oregon has. Seen pretty tight rotations from Ohio State, even when they were up big against Washington yesterday. Swafford and Soper playing a lot of points.
I believe in this game, Soper's played every point. Swafford's taken one off.
Here's the pull from Soper. Lands just in front of the midfield and rolls across. The Oregon offense picks up. Kaler initiating the offense here for Fugue. Steps around, throws a backhand. Darch with a nice adjustment to get underneath it, pull it down. Darch now looking to the dump, not there. Now she'll go ahead. It's out to Bartruff and now moved out to the sideline for Weaver. Darch comes and collects. Back to the sideline, Darch with a strike cut. And that throw too far out in front of Sophie Darch. And so Soper will pick up for Ohio State as they look to work it back up to this right-hand end zone. Nothing doing for Soper, but she finds a poached Swafford to get the disc off the sideline.
A lot of switching from this Oregon team. We're seeing matchups change as Soper attacks deep.
And this disc gonna float up, but it hangs up a little too long, and Kaler able to get underneath it and make the play. But then miscommunication between Kaler and Schaffner gives it right back to Ohio State with better field position. Soper picking up, Darch on the mark. Great matchup. We'll see if these two continue to face off against one another. And Soper missed her target there, Swafford, but it stays in the hands of Ohio State. Now Swafford with it. 10 yards outside the end zone. Swafford looking to the dump. Dishes it off. It's with Galetta here. Galetta to Swafford. All the way across. Schaffner in the area, almost Had an opportunity for a block there. Now Soper gets it, fires into the end zone, and punches in the Ohio State score. And just like that, Ohio State back in front. Elizabeth Gates gets the score for OSU, and they lead 4-3.
Second score for Gates in this game. After Ohio State with a very patient, disciplined red zone possession there, working the disc back and forth, going from one sideline to the other and all the way back for the score.
You're watching Ulti World's coverage of the 2014 Northwest Challenge. We'll be right back.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house, from printing your gear on our Green Line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
Welcome back to Seattle, Washington, where Ohio State has a 4-3 lead over the #1 ranked Oregon Fugue. Cassie Swafford out on the line with the disc, getting set to pull here for Ohio State.
Soper taking her first point off for Ohio State.
And here's the pull from Swafford. Big backhand that's going to turn over and land back inbounds. So Oregon offense underway. Kaler dishes to the sideline for Caitlin Brunick. Going ahead, it's Ashley Young, who was out food poisoning during the Washington Showcase game on Friday night. Back in the hands of Kaler. To the sideline for Alex Odie. Odie looking into the end zone and finding Young for the score. So a nice quick possession there for the Oregon offense, and they tie the game at 4s.
Really, the field opened up when Ashley Young was able to get that up line cut open. Oregon doing a great job attacking the break side from there, using the unmarked thrower to cross the field and set up a score eventually.
And both teams really just looking a step above the rest of the competition here at the Northwest Challenge in terms of polish, in terms of adjustments, and that's why we've seen these teams separate themselves into the top 3 in the country. These two teams, along with Central Florida, really playing a head above the rest. As they have a timeout on the field here, we see Oregon in the huddle.
Ohio State putting on a pretty impressive weekend so far through the first day, for their first day of competition yesterday. Did not give up double digits in any of their games. Oregon having a test from UBC, who's been very impressive as well this tournament. In the first half, down 7-6, but able to string together some scores to take half and would eventually win that game 14-10. It's not always pretty, but usually their score reporter page mostly filled with green.
So now Oregon on the line. They prepare to pull. It will be Jesse Schaffner. We'll see if Oregon again shows that junky look that forced a turnover down on this end earlier. Schaffner's pull will float out of bounds, so it will be brought to the brick mark by Caitlin Harley. Soper back on the field. Swafford on the sideline for this point. checked in here by Harley. Bit of poaching, but mostly man defense here from Oregon. Disc with Soper.
Walrus on that matchup once again.
Soper with a little dish to Galetta. Galetta up the field, finds Elaine Wetley. Now out to the sideline for Miller. Manages to stay in bounds. Out on the far side. Miller looking to get rid of it and finds Galetta.
Here we see the other side of that chaotic knife from Oregon. Confusing for offenses, but easy to get lost in it as a defender as well.
Soper holding right in the middle of the field. Now dishes out to the sideline for Galetta. Galetta looking into the end zone and finding the poached player, Stephanie Miller, with the score for Ohio State. And as you just said, Keith, maybe a little bit of confusion about where to be there at the end of the point, and there was a wide open Ohio State cutter in the corner of the end zone.
Oregon struggling to transition into a more traditional man near the red zone. A couple of different times we had a thrower completely unmarked, and Galetta able to make them pay for it eventually. But like we said, this is kind of what we expect, and certainly is Oregon's MO in the beginning of the game, is really these kind of set up jabs, feel each other out, and Oregon has really proven themselves to be a second half team as they go into the halftime, make smart adjustments and pressure teams coming out of the half. But you definitely get the sense both of these teams are kind of waiting to pick their spot as to when's the time to really attack.
Oregon often testing out some different defenses early in the game, trying to see what works. And Ohio State, as we mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, has been very good at maintaining possession, not giving the disc back to the other team, especially after turnovers. It's going to be the pull here from Soper. And it's a nice pull. It's going to come down into the end zone. And Darch will initiate here for Oregon. Steps up, looks upfield. Dishes over to Kaler.
And you can see Darch and Kaler setting up that quick disc movement that Oregon uses so well.
Darch over to Odie. Back to Kaler. Been very active around the disc here in the beginning of this game. Odie goes ahead to Schaffner.
Coach Lou Burris saying his team's throwing way too many passes, and immediately it bites Oregon.
And Kaler drops the dump pass from Schaffner. And so Ohio State with a short field here, looking to take a 2-point lead for the first time in this game. Swafford using her height to just throw over the top of Schaffner, and now Ohio State going into the end zone. And it's Lauren Franke with the goal. And OSU takes their biggest lead of the game. They're up 6-4.
Again, we see that Ohio State efficiency. When they get the disc, they're looking to score with it, and they're taking their time. They find the look that they want. They don't rush or crowd their dump cuts. They rarely take ill-advised shots.
And interesting to see Swafford on Schaffner there. Cassie Swafford proving to be a big mismatch after the turnover, with the ability to really put the disc wherever she wants because of the relative height difference, and just throws right over the top there. And OSU putting Oregon in the biggest deficit they've seen this weekend here at 2 points.
And we spoke, when I spoke with Coach Deanna Ball of Ohio State prior to the game, she talked about, I asked her what weaknesses she might see in Oregon, and she said if they could really pressure them defensively, she thought they might be able to get into their heads a little bit, especially for a team so driven by momentum, and maybe attacking Schaffner, who we know is a very emotional player, who's, when she's playing well, is one of the best players in the country, but when she's not, can be very turnover prone. Maybe putting Swafford on her is an attempt to kind of rattle her a little bit early on.
Well, what we saw is that in that Washington game, she was consistently initiating the downfield offense for Oregon, and they often got a big gainer to Schaffner to start things off. As we see Darch with it here for Oregon. Now getting it out to Odie on the far side. Odie stepping up, And throwing ahead to Kaler. Kaler steps around, throws a backhand to Bartruff, now to Darch. 5 yards out. Darch looking into the end zone, doesn't find it. And a pick call is gonna stop play.
Liz Gates of Ohio State doing a great job denying her fellow Cincinnati youth player, Beth Kaler, the initiating cut, but Kaler continues to grind, get some yardage and separation, is able to attack the break side.
Just tap back in. Odie looking to the end zone and finds Bartruff. Again, great speed from Olivia Bartruff. And Oregon punches it in to get back within one at 6-5.
Fugue loves to go to Bartruff on the goal line just because she's so quick. That first couple of steps, it's very hard for defenders to keep up with her. They'll put her at the front of the stack and let her make a couple of juke moves, and the throwers have the ability to get to space for her.
So far, game living up to expectations. Very good play from both teams. And if you're just joining us, this is not technically the finals of this tournament because there is no bracket play here at the Northwest Challenge, but both teams coming into the game undefeated. This game essentially deciding who will win the Northwest Challenge in its inaugural year.
And more than just that on the line, Charlie, potentially the #1 seed in Cincinnati at the college championships on the line here. Oregon right now holding that position, that pole position, but Ohio State with a win here. They also have a win over Central Florida, but a pair of losses earlier in the year at Central Florida. Perhaps the new weighted algorithm will award a little bit more weight to that later win. One of those three teams likely to be the #1 seed at the college championships, and this game will certainly influence that result.
Ohio State offense back underway. Galetta finding Miller. Miller looking downfield and getting it to Frankie, who dishes out to the sideline for Swafford. Swafford fakes the flick, now throws the backhand, gets it over to Harley. Harley looking to get it off to the dump and does, finding Galetta. And that throw from Galetta a little bit behind Frankie, so Oregon will pick up here with an opportunity to go up into the right-hand end zone for the break.
Oregon very, very focused on trying to get that disc moving quickly, and Ohio State really transitioning well directly into their man. And
Walrus to Fontenot, but Fontenot's throw over the head of Brunick, so back into the hands of Ohio State. Swafford with it. Swafford gets it over to Anna Dorfy. Now in the hands of Harley. And Swafford now attacking the end zone, looking for Miller. Miller all alone, beating Fontenot. And Stephanie Miller reeling in another score for Ohio State as they go back up by 2.
She's been very impressive in our couple of times watching Ohio State. We know they lost a couple of pieces, some of their stronger role players after their semifinals run last year, and Miller's really stepped up into filling a bigger role for this team as a thrower and a cutter.
And we see Ohio State in the huddle during this timeout. And in the opposite huddle, Coach Lou Burris getting animated with his Oregon team, trying to emphasize more energy on defense as OSU holding a 2-point lead here over the #1 ranked Oregon Fugue. And in many ways, this is first time Oregon has been pushed this weekend. We have seen them have some tight first halves, as they often do before opening up games in the second half, but more urgency from Lou Burris as he sees what we see, which is a Ohio State team that doesn't give the disc up very much, and you have to take your chances when you get them.
And one of the ways that Oregon sets up for these strong second half runs is by wearing teams down in the first half with their physical defense, long possessions, and then transitioning very quickly and scoring efficiently but because of Ohio State's efficiency on offense, they've been able to avoid those long points that'll really wear down the legs.
Paige Soper with the pull. Oregon pulling it down and gets right into the hands of Darch to get things started. She'll go up the field to Kaler for a 15-yard gainer. Kaler back to Darch. Darch out to the sideline for Odie. And Oregon forced to lose some yardage there on the dump. Darch back with it near midfield. To Kaler. Kaler fires a flick down into the end zone, and it's going to be intercepted by Miller, who's having a great first half here for Ohio State. In between two Oregon offensive players, and Ohio State maintaining possession there after the nice grab from Emma Schroeder. Dumps back to Harley. Harley goes ahead, but nice block and a big bid from the Ohio State player, but unable to come up with it. So Weaver earning the block for Oregon, and now back underway. Sophie Darch. About 15 yards out, and Darch with the big blade going on the other side, and it's going to float over everybody's head. And a rare, I would say, poor decision from Darch. A little bit too much underneath that throw.
Good job by Miller to contest that play. Forces the receiver to go up early and have to think about the position of the defender. And looks like we're seeing a timeout here.
And so with the score, Ohio State 7, Oregon 5. It's OSU with the disc, and they will take a timeout. You're watching UltiWorld's coverage of the Northwest Challenge. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Seattle, Washington, where Ohio State leads Oregon 7-5. OSU coming out of a timeout here with the disc and an opportunity to take half. If they can work the full 70 yards. It's going to be Caitlin Harley checking it in for Ohio State. Oregon set. It's a horizontal stack here from OSU. Observer getting set, and now disc tapped into play. Nice find up the sideline. Miller with it. She fires down the field. Emma Schroeder going up, but can't come down with it, so Oregon getting away with the better after that timeout. And they'll have it again near midfield. Kaler going ahead and nearly blocked, but Amelia Lanning able to get to it. Now going up the sideline, Darch with a nice grab on the outside. Darch now looking to the end zone. Nice dump defense, and now Darch have to fire to the back of the end zone, and a nice shot there, finding Amelia Lanning. And that's the field vision that Sophie Darch has as Oregon puts it in and makes it, again, a one-point game.
And you see that the ability of Darch to take punts and turn them into convertible catches. A lot of teams throw up those high stall throws and don't know how to put the touch or what space to put them to give the receivers the advantage. But Darch recognizing that she can put that blade to the break side and give her receivers an advantage over their defenders.
So Oregon cuts the lead to 1, and Ohio State will look to close out this first half on offense.
These two programs, Charlie, so very different from one another, not only in their culture, but in how they've developed. Oregon, more or less, ultimate royalty, 2 national championships in the past 4 years, roster filled with high-level juniors players like Haley Walrus, Sophie Darch, Bethany Kaler, actually an Ohio native from Cincinnati. Imagine how good this Ohio State team would be if she had stayed close to home, but meanwhile, this Ohio State team built around Cassie Swafford. They're one of their lone youth players, although the Ohio area youth scene has grown. But really, this team is built from the ground up. Very few players with youth experience, just athletes who've been trained.
They reached the semifinals of the college championships last year where they lost to Carleton. And it's a quick turnover here generated by great pressure from Oregon, but we may have a call here on the throw. Oh no, it's going to be on the catch. And Jesse Schaffner eager to get the disc tap back into play. No contest, it appears, so it's going to stay with Ohio State.
Oregon does not contest calls, essentially. If you make a call, they're pretty much going to give it to you.
Good pressure from Oregon, but gets back in the hands of Swafford. Swafford so poised. Holding, faking the flick, now needing to find somebody and going ahead. Bit of a low throw and unable to be handled there by Harley. So Oregon now with the quick attack, looking to move up the field. Here's Kaler. Kaler dishing to Odie. Odie back to Schaffner. Again, Odie now into the middle for Kaler. Kaler very active here in the first half. And this throw going to be dished up into the air, and it's going to be Swafford coming down with it. Floated over the head, and now Swafford immediately going down the field looking for Gates. Gates all alone catches it just in front of the end zone, about 5 yards out. Oregon players having to drop into coverage. Now the mark gets set. It's Fontenot setting up on that mark. Gates flipping into the end zone. And it's a score for Ohio State. And OSU taking half here, 8-6. And they have a 2-break lead here over Oregon at the break. Ohio State will receive to start the second half. And we'll be back in about 8 minutes with some analysis of the first half, some keys to the second, right here on Ultiworld. You're watching our coverage of the 2014 Northwest Challenge. This is the finals of this interesting and exciting tournament. We'll be back shortly for the second half. OSU leads Oregon 8-6 here at the break.
What does it mean to be powered by Savage? It means we become part of your team. From the moment you're paired with one of our sales reps who will guide you through the ordering process, to working with a designated member of our design team to bring your vision to life. Every step of the production process happens in-house, from printing your gear on our Green Line fabric made from 100% recycled plastic bottles, to cutting out every piece and carefully stitching it together by hand. Wherever you are, however you play, we've got your back. That's what it means to be powered by Savage.
Welcome back to Seattle, Washington for the second half here in the finals of the Northwest Challenge. Ohio State leading Oregon 8-6, up a pair of breaks after a strong first half. We did see Oregon starting to intensify their defense right there at the end of the half, but unable to get into those breaks back. And so OSU coming into the second half, getting set to receive the pull here. And Keith, what did you see in this first half?
I think that we saw just how well coached and deep and disciplined this Ohio State team is. You know, we didn't say, we talked a lot about Paige Soper, but she wasn't super involved in their offense. And in part that's because Sophie Darcher's done a great job defending her. She's forced her out of the reset positions pretty often. But even without arguably their best player being super involved in the offense, it has not stopped Ohio State from finding good flow and attacking. And I think that says a lot about how good this team is across the board. And we saw players like Stephanie Miller really stepping up in that first half to help them deliver.
And if you're Oregon, you know that you've built a dynasty in some ways on the back of being a second half team. And all weekend and all season and over really the past 2 years, we've seen this Oregon team come out strong in the second half and honestly often pound teams. And it's unlikely that you're going to be able to just pound this Ohio State team. They're too skilled, but what does Oregon need to do to continue to put that pressure on that they've showed in the second half all season long?
We talked about them having to pressure the resets. They've got to do that defensively, and then they've got to find a way to get the disc moving faster. Ohio State doing a very good job in transition defense and slowing down Oregon and keeping them from getting that quick attack going.
Pull goes up from Haley Walrus, and it will trail out of bounds. So Paige Soper will pick it up and bring it to the brick mark for Ohio State.
Walrus matching up with Soper here, Kaler on Swafford. And like we said, usually Oregon really grinds teams down in the first half and takes advantage of that in the second half. But Ohio State very efficient in that first half, and I'm not sure we're going to see that huge advantage.
Soper immediately shooting deep and finding Katie Backus, who hasn't been that involved yet, but a nice shot down there. And Backus looking into the end zone, and it's a quick Ohio State score to start this second half. They're up 3, 9-6.
And that's the efficiency that we just talked about with Ohio State. They recognized the opportunity early, took an intelligent shot, and then converted in the red zone. Few teams that we've watched have been able to put together all three pieces of that possession.
And so Ohio State taking advantage of that halftime switch and getting that first possession. So now a bit of a hill to climb here for Oregon. It's the first time they've really faced this tournament where they have to fight back in the second half. And no doubt we've seen that they can do it, but it's going to be tough against this Ohio State team that's, as we've talked about, been so strong with the disc.
Another strength of Oregon that's helped them have so much success in the second half is how smart they are about making adjustments and taking the information they gleaned in the first half and applying that to the field, not just from the coaching staff finding the adjustments, but the players in executing them, which can be a real challenge to translate that, hey, we need to change this, into actual change on the field. Players usually falling back into habits once they start playing. But I think it speaks to how good the coaching staff is on Ohio State, that we think Ohio State can compete with that sort of adjustment level. Deanna Ball at the top of that coaching staff, but joined by Nick Hamilton, and actually their coach Brent Reeb not able to make the trip out, coaching them over our live stream, watching the stream and sending texts to the team.
Ashley Young picks the disc up for Oregon here on the sideline. Darts trying to get some going into that strike space, can't find it. And now Young, nice vision to find Casey Harris. Harris dumps it off. Weaver with it. She gets it back to Young. Young to Darch on this near side.
The zone look from Oregon, they're staying in it even as they approach the red zone. Darch attacking cross field.
Nice throw all the way across to Odie. Switching the field, but good recovery from Ohio State to immediately put more pressure. Darch getting it, now 5 yards out. Darch with a flip into the back of the end zone, and a nice find there. Again, Harris, and it's an Oregon score, back within 2.
Third assist, I believe, for Sophie Darch. All of them flick blades. Not afraid to use that throw in the red zone. A little bit like Julia Snyder in the high release backhand, as a red zone throw that they're very confident in and that their receivers know well. Oregon's going to need to get it done on defense, though, in order to win this game. Though this mechanical offense, machine-like really, from Ohio State, it's going to need something thrown, a wrench thrown in the works.
What we've seen from a lot of teams is a little bit of playing scared against Oregon on offense when that chaotic defense comes at it, and often putting up a punt at stall 7 instead of waiting to find the dump. And of course, that's credit to Oregon, who puts a lot of pressure on the initial dump looks, and of course puts a lot of pressure on the downfield lanes and forces teams into shots down the field that they're in a good position to make a play on. But so far, Ohio State has played very patient, and I think you have to attribute some of that to the poise that we've seen, particularly from the leader of this team, Cassie Swafford.
Coach Deanna Ball telling me that she didn't want her team to fall into the trap of the field position game with Oregon, and that might be why they're approaching Oregon so patiently.
This comes to the sideline for Ohio State, now moving through this junky look from Oregon. Swafford gets it. Swafford doing a nice job of opening up windows with fakes, and now moves it out to the sideline. And ahead, Schroeder on the sideline Dumps it back to Harley. And now again with Swafford in the center. A lot of chatter from the Oregon sideline, increases the pressure on the offense. Jenna Galetta over to Swafford. And Swafford with a backhand looking into the end zone. And a great grab in the end zone from Katie Backus. Pulls it down. And a defensive lapse down there as Backus able to sneak behind the deep there, Bethany Kaler. And Ohio State punches it in patiently against this Oregon defense.
Kaler used to being able to win that matchup, probably baiting the thrower, saying, this is a difficult throw. I don't think you can put this without giving me a good shot at it. But the combination of the athleticism of the receiver and Katie Backus and the skill of the thrower and Cassie Swafford able to navigate a trap that many people fall for when Kaler baits them into that throw.
OSU back to a 3-point lead. And the Oregon defense still failing to generate good chances. It's absolutely quality pressure, but haven't had any opportunities at some big Ds as Ohio State has been patiently working. And again through Swafford in the middle.
Yeah, the Callahan candidates for each team acquaint themselves nicely. Swafford has been a maestro for this offense so far, in total control of how our team's moving and confidently taking resets and taking intelligent shots down the field. Darch has played well on both sides of the disc, taking on Paige Soper and doing a great job defensively, and also powering her offense and delivering a lot of assists so far for Oregon.
So Darch back with the disc, flips it out to the sideline. Now comes ahead here. Oregon moving nicely up this near side. Odie dumps back to Young, back to Odie. Back to Young. Two of them working it back and forth. Now finding some room to get it through. Weaver across the field, back into the center. And Harris looking into the end zone and finding her cutter downfield. Serafina Angstadlito with the goal. And so Oregon holds again on offense to get back within 2.
Now it was the trademark disc movement of Oregon that helped them navigate through that zone. No player really wants to hold the disc very long. You see they immediately look for short throws and deep looks off of this disc movement. You know, they've in the past done a lot of practicing with 5-second stall counts to increase the speed at which the team plays.
See Lou Burris out on the line with Oregon, getting set for another defensive point, trying to figure out what to do to break down this Ohio State's offense.
You can bet that both of these teams and both coaching staffs are going to be going back to the footage after this, knowing how important this matchup could potentially be to winning a national championship. Regardless of who wins, there's a pretty strong chance that we'll see these teams playing with a lot on the line later this year.
Pull goes up here from Haley Walrus. And it will land right near midfield. It's going to be Galetta picking up for Ohio State. She fires ahead, finding Backus. Backus out to the near side for Schroeder. Schroeder looking to the end zone, doesn't have it. Holds that throw, now looking for the dump. And she's gonna go down the field looking for Swafford, and Swafford can't come down with it. So now here is Oregon's chance. Walrus with it, and Call is gonna stop things well back at the spot of the Ohio State throw that was turned over when Swafford couldn't reel it in.
And again, Oregon dealing with Paige Sober by trying to flush her up the line. Schaffner taking on that matchup and defending the backfield space, trying to force Soper out of the dump space and keep the disc away from her.
And it looks like
they can.
It was a stall, Keith. So Oregon's going to tap the disc in here back at the spot of the throw. after the stall. And it's going to be Walrus initiating the offense. Stoppage here for a moment after some contact at the mark. Walrus fires up the sideline to Schaffner. Schaffner immediately putting a flick up the sideline, and a nice block, good awareness from Elaine Wetley from Ohio State. Gets this back into the hands of OSU. Paige Soper moving into the middle, and a short field turnover, giving Oregon a quick chance here. Walrus picking up. Can't find anybody right away, so she dumps to Kaler. Kaler looking into the end zone for Schaffner. Schaffner with a huge layout and a huge score. Picks it up, kick spike. What a play from Jesse Schaffner in that far end zone. But now it looks like we have a call. And unclear what happened. Maybe a continuation on a travel call. So the disc going to go back to Kaler here. And so now Kaler looking into the end zone once again for Schaffner. Schaffner again has to lay out and keeps her toes inbound, so it is a goal. And so right back to Schaffner.
Charlie, it looks like she may be ruled out of bounds. I'm not sure.
Very unusual. The observer on that sideline ruled a goal. And so after some confusion, they do, in fact, uphold it as a score. And so Oregon gets their first break of the second half, and they get back within one here on Ohio State.
A strange series of possessions, but we know Schaffner can make huge plays for this Oregon team, and they can really feed off that.
And this is the moment for Ohio State that's going to really be telling about this team is ready not only to beat this Oregon team, but also you have to think that winning a game like this, after Oregon gets a little bit of momentum, says a lot about your title chances, because you know that a team like Oregon is going to make a run, and they put a break on the board there after the short field turn. And how do you respond?
And we talked in the first half about these teams kind of feeling each other out and looking for that moment to strike, and this is it. This is when you stop throwing jabs and you go for the haymaker. You try and land a knockout now.
Great game here as the pull goes up from Oregon. OSU still up one, but Oregon on the move. Cassie Swafford with the disc for Ohio State. Swafford looking for a dump, not finding it. Great pressure, and now going out. And it's a drop. Just bounces in and out of the hands of Galetta. So back-to-back execution mistakes from Ohio State. Gives the disc back to Oregon with a chance to tie. Schaffner 5 yards out. She'll throw a backhand across the field. It's going to float up. It's going to be a defendable disc. On a second effort, nearly caught by Oregon. But it bounces out of the hands of Foley Galvin. So Ohio State catches a break, and Swafford will bring it in, try to some poise back into this game. Ohio State looking a little ragged here. This is what Oregon does to teams. Stephanie Miller catches underneath, now to Soper. Soper firing a backhand up the line, and that one too far out in front of Christy Steba.
Oregon really limiting Soper's touches and maybe taking her a little bit out of the rhythm of this game. If you're Ohio State, you've got to make some adjustments to find out how to get one of your star players the disc.
Walrus throws up the line to Kaler, but a call is going to send it back. In fact, it looks like it's going to stay with Kaler after all. Swafford on the mark here on Kaler. Tap back into play. Kaler up the sideline, and this disc bounces in and out of the hands of Odie. So Ohio State now gets the disc back on offense. Swafford picks up. Swafford moves it ahead. Now up the line here to Backus. Backus to Soper on the inside, and now Soper down the field and into the end zone and finds Frankie for the Ohio State goal. So after a miscue on her last shot up the field. She tunes it up this time and puts it in, and OSU is back up by 2.
We talked about finding ways to get Soper touches, and when you're being forced up the line by your dump D, it makes you a great continue option. You've already got steps on your defender if the team can find you upfield. And there, Soper able to get open up the field. Backus with a very nice up the line IO to hit Soper. She's got an unmarked throw and does what she does best with it, puts in the end zone.
(11-9), Ohio State leads Oregon. See Coach Deanna Ball out on the line, talking to Soper, and Soper preparing to pull here. And now the pressure shifts back over to Oregon here. Every offensive point starting to feel very important for both teams.
We mentioned Ohio State flying to their first tournament this year, maybe ever, and this is why you fly across the country, is to find out how do we do when we have to face Oregon. They've dominated pretty much everyone else they've played, and now they're doing a great job in this matchup.
Sophie Darch with the disc for Fugue. Swings over to Young. Young with a backhand up the sideline, and this gets caught up a little bit in the wind. And it can't be reeled in by Casey Harris, so now Ohio State will attack, trying to put a break back on the board. And the throw going towards the end zone, but nobody able to clean it up. And Oregon will get it back and have to work the full 70.
We talked about Oregon having to be able to challenge the resets and the handler movement of Ohio State, and there they deny both resets to Swafford and Soper.
Darch to Young, and another turnover on a poor throw from Ashley Young. Paige Soper will pick up for Ohio State in the short field. Soper fakes the flick, now trying to get it to Swafford in the center. Finds some room and now gets it into the hands of Swafford. Swafford with a huge height mismatch here. Stepping out, looking for the flick, and now throwing the backhand, looking to the end zone. Second effort opportunity, and it's caught on the sideline. Ohio State, oh, we have a call? Nope, a late call from the observers on whether or not that was in, but it is gonna be a score for Ohio State. And another great grab by Stephanie Miller. OSU retakes a 3-point lead with the break.
And you mentioned the height mismatch that Swafford had with Bartroff. And there she's able to use it by stepping around her smaller mark and using that length to get off that throw. Miller cleaning it up.
So Ohio State leading by 3. And with an opportunity here to give Oregon just their second loss of the season, and not a game like Oregon's previous loss that's just in pool play. This is a very meaningful game. The Northwest Challenge title on the line, and more than that, potentially the 1-seeded Nationals. And so going to have a very exciting game down the stretch here. The OSU defense talking it out on the line. And here's the pull from Cassie Swafford. Oregon gets things started. Putting Darch downfield for the first time. And now Darch looking to get down into the end zone, but the pass a bit too long. And so just back into the hands of Ohio State. It'll be checked in by Harley. Swings it over to Galetta. Galetta to Swafford. Swafford holding. Now throwing a backhand into the middle. Nice grab in traffic. Ohio State cutters not fazed by the tight defense from Oregon. Swafford now firing a flick up the sideline. It's going to go over everybody's head, but a second effort and another big grab on a trailing disc. It's Wetley this time. She swings it out right near the end zone, just in front, 5 yards out. Ohio State holding. Galetta. This could be a huge score, and Galetta looking into the end zone, but too far out in front. Tried to step around and hit Swafford on the strike cut, but it's going to be a turnover, and Oregon will get it back here. Walrus to Darch. Sophie Darch with Harley on the mark. Moves it ahead, and Darch gets it right back. So good at moving after the throw. And Darch finding Bartroff down the field. Big gainer. And now Schaffner cutting hard to the end zone. And Schaffner all alone will reel it in. And Oregon dodges one there as they punch it in and get it back to a 2-point game. It's 12-10.
Oregon getting a sense of urgency here. So we're coming down near the home stretch of this game. They're going to need to find some energy and really that big play that fires up this team. And we know they play best when they are almost angry. Right now they're not able to find that fire because they're playing such a composed team in Ohio State.
And so time ticking down here, but Oregon, as we know, has the ability to go on big runs late in games. Done it so many times. We'll see if they can do it here today as they look to win the Northwest Challenge. Ohio State up a pair. And you see Sophie Darch out on the line. Defensive point. Getting set to pull here for Oregon. Ohio State with a lot of height out on this offensive point. Oregon getting set to pull. Darch signals readiness and winds up and fires off the backhand pull. It's going to land near just past midfield. Harley picking up. Great downfield defense from Oregon. A big bid. Not quite enough. Miller hangs on. Now to Swafford. And Swafford fires the flick down the field. Has some room down in the back of the end zone and finds Lauren Franke for the quick goal. Ohio State 13, Oregon 10. And now just 2 points away from the upset win here over Oregon. What a game we've got going here, Keith.
Oregon last year able to traverse the entire season with just a single loss, a Saturday pool play loss to UBC, and now facing down potentially their second loss of this season. Whether that speaks to national parity or an Oregon team that's not as strong as they were last year or pure coincidence, we're not sure yet, but it certainly sets up an exciting landscape going into the college series. Game far from over, though. We know far too much about this Fugue team to ever count them out, but still searching for that spark. One of the things we talked about with this Ohio State team when we had them on the stream against Washington is that they don't fall into the trap that a lot of teams do of letting up. They don't get complacent. They don't get too comfortable and let teams build momentum to go the other way. And we see them continuing to try and apply pressure defensively to Oregon.
Darch ahead to Kaler. Kaler adjusting to make the catch there. Nice grab. Alex Odie now the miscommunication on the dump. So Ohio State will get it here. Paige Soper winds up a big backhand, puts it up, looking down the field and unable to get to it. is Elizabeth Gates, so Oregon will get it back. Fortunate there for Oregon.
Gates has gotten a couple of deep shots off of that transition look. She attacks early.
And it's been Ohio State, honestly, looking like a better team in transition offensively. So used to seeing Oregon take advantage of those situations, and a big inside-out backhand to the back corner. What a shot from Bethany Kaler. And that is just a beautiful throw, hitting Alex Odie in the back corner to get back within 2.
Going into this season, I wrote a little bit on the site about how impressive Bethany Kaler is. Even just as a young player, she's clearly one of the most talented players in the country. And that throw from someone who oftentimes is a cutter and an elite defender, just that she has that in her toolkit just speaks to how well-rounded she is as a player and what a weapon she is for Oregon Fuke.
You're watching Ultiworld's coverage of the finals of the Northwest Challenge. Ohio State leading Oregon 13-11. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Seattle, Washington, where Ohio State leads Oregon 13-11. And the pull is up here from Oregon. OSU on offense looking to get within 1 of a victory here. Paige Soper dishing back to the outside. Now going ahead, big layout underneath. Soper with it again. Backhand from Soper, looking down the field to Wetley. Wetley laying out and making the grab. Beautiful catch from Wetley. And OSU leading now 14-11. They are within 1 of the huge upset here over Oregon. And more excellent poised offense from Ohio State.
And Soper, who's been on and off with her involvement in this game, and we talked about Ohio State's success even without her, but when she can get the disc in her hand, she can make a lot of big plays, and that's her second assist of the second half. Soper, a bit of a star built out of nowhere. She was a very good athlete coming out of high school, but not someone with a lot of ultimate experience and not someone people were well aware of. But over the course of last year, became a Callahan finalist. Played this past summer with the U23 team on the women's side. But she's not the same kind of player that Kaler, Darch, Swafford are. Swafford and Darch, former Junior Worlds teammates.
And so Ohio State see the defense out there hoping to finish this game up on this point. Pull goes up from Soper. Lands just in bounds. Past midfield. And it will be Darch walking to the disc to pick it up for Oregon. Side stack from Oregon to isolate into that space. Nice poach from Swafford to take it away. Dump back to Young. Now all the way across. Now finding some room underneath, but Schaffner watches it go in and out of her hands. And so here's Ohio State's opportunity. Swafford with the disc. Swings to Harley. Harley with the backhand ahead to Soper. Soper fakes the big backhand, moves the mark, now looking and patiently waiting for Swafford. And now dishing it ahead. Harley. Back to Soper.
You look at the space these upfield cutters give these three handlers to work with, and it allows them to have space to throw up the line and reset positions, but a punt forced from Soper, and Oregon looks to transition. And
quickly moving is Oregon after Soper has to get rid of it in a high stall. Back over to Young in the center, and she'll come around to Bartruff. To the sideline. Back to Young. To Darch.
Liz Gates doing a great job denying Bethany Cale their disc, teammates for 3 years in high school.
And a throw hangs up there too long, and it's Harley able to make a play on Schaffner. And Harley's going to take a timeout with Ohio State about 25 yards away from that end zone, where they can, after this timeout, win the game over Oregon. 14-11 the score here, and options seem to be running out for Oregon. It's been OSU in this second half withstanding that break from Oregon, getting one back, and now in control here, up 3, looking to win the Northwest Challenge.
And really, it's Ohio State's defense that's been so impressive this second half. In the first half, it was their offensive poise that helped them take control of the game early, and since then have been able to apply defensive pressure and create difficult throwing situations for Oregon. And Oregon also making a couple of little fundamental mistakes. It's not unfamiliar territory to see them turning the disc over, but usually it's with aggressive downfield play rather than reset drops.
We talked at the beginning of this game about pace, and Ohio State has really controlled the pace of this game. Has not gotten frantic in the face of tough Oregon defense, and has continued to play their game and forced Oregon out of theirs. So the disc tap back into play here. Ohio State looking to finish off this contest. It's with Swafford on the outside. Active mark. Swafford looking, faking, now throwing the flick, finding Soper just in front of the end zone. Swafford looking into the end zone, and she'll pull it down. Soper hits Swafford, and Ohio State takes down Oregon here to win the Northwest Challenge.
That's how you write it up if you're Ohio State to win, right? Swafford coming down with the score after a point that she was in total control of.
So the teams will high five here as Ohio State lands the biggest win of their season. And with the margin of victory here, you have to think that this puts Ohio State in the driver's seat to get the 1 overall seed at Nationals. They've beaten UCF, they've beaten Oregon, and they've only had a pair of losses all the way back in January. It's quite a resume for this Ohio State team.
And Ohio State, we weren't sure what to make of them coming into this year. Losing Paige Soper, or so we thought, but her return has vaulted them right back to the top of the leaderboard, and they now have wins over both Oregon and Central Florida. So out of the top 3 teams in the country, Ohio State the only team with wins over both. And you're right, that's got to put them in the driver's seat. And you mentioned Oregon imposing their will and the pace of the game on most teams, and that's typically been how they take teams out of games, is by forcing teams to play their style of play, and they're always going to beat you that way. And Ohio State standing tall, resisting that, and really forcing Oregon out of their comfort zone. That was a big part of this 15-11 win for Ohio State.
The final here in Seattle, Ohio State 15, Oregon 11. And it's quite a performance here for OSU in their first tournament that they've ever had to fly to. And they may have set themselves up as potentially the new favorite heading into the college championships. So lots more to come. We do have another game coming up here. It's going to be Stanford taking on Western Washington in the final round of the day here, and the final round of the Northwest Challenge. So we hope you'll join us for that classic West Coast matchup, and both teams looking to close out the weekend with a win. The final here from Seattle, OSU 15, Oregon 11. We'll be back in about 30 minutes for the final round of the day.
This game is brought to you by Spin Ultimate, proud to sponsor Ultiworld's 2020 college coverage. Visit Spin Ultimate on the web at spinultimate.com.
Every time we pressurize, we play better.
An Ultiworld subscription gets you closer to the players and personalities you care about with game video, in-depth written and video analysis,
He's going to take off deep, but what he does is very simple.
documentary shorts,
And we've played Brute Squad before, and it just feels a little bit harder to lose this year.
and a whole lot more. To get your subscription or learn more, go to ultiworld.com/subscribe.